Have you ever felt like someone was influencing your decisions, but you couldn't quite explain how? You might think you're making your own choices, but sometimes someone else is quietly steering them. In this video, you'll see 7 signs someone might be secretly controlling you, and the last one is something almost everyone has experienced. Let's start with the first sign. Sign 1, the guilt trap. One of the most common ways someone controls you is through guilt. You might notice that every time you say no, you suddenly feel like you did something wrong. Maybe they say something like, "Wow, I guess you just don't care," or "After everything I've done for you?" Instead of respecting your decision, the conversation suddenly becomes about their feelings. So the next time it happens, you might say yes, not because you want to, but because you don't want to deal with the guilt. Sign 2, questioning your decisions. Another sign is when someone constantly questions your choices. You make a decision and suddenly you hear things like, "Are you sure that's a good idea?" You might want to rethink that. At first, it sounds like advice, but when it keeps happening, something subtle starts to happen. You begin second-guessing yourself, and once you start doubting your own judgment, it becomes much easier for someone else to influence what you do. Sign 3, the silent treatment. Sometimes control doesn't come from words. Sometimes it comes from silence. You might notice that when you disagree with someone, they suddenly stop talking. They ignore messages, they act distant, and that silence creates tension. You start wondering what you did wrong, even if you didn't actually do anything wrong. Eventually, you change your behavior just to avoid that uncomfortable silence again. Sign 4, constant criticism. You might notice small criticisms happening again and again. Sometimes it sounds like advice. "You could have handled that better," or "Why would you do it like that?" Individually, these comments seem small, but over time, they slowly chip away at your confidence. And when your confidence drops, it becomes easier for someone else to influence your decisions. Sign 5, rushing your decisions. Another common tactic is pressure. You might hear things like, "You need to decide right now. There's no time to think about it." When your brain feels rushed, it switches into stress mode. And when people feel stressed, they're far more likely to agree just to relieve the pressure, which makes it easier for someone else to steer the outcome. Sign 6, isolating you from others. Sometimes control happens through isolation. You might notice someone criticizing your friends or questioning the people around you. Maybe they say things like, "I don't think they're a good influence on you." Over time, you might start spending less time with others, and the more isolated you become, the more influence that one person has over your decisions. Sign 7, the "you owe me" effect. Now this last one is the one most people completely overlook, and there's a really good chance you've experienced this before. This happens when someone does something nice for you. Maybe they help you out. Maybe they go out of their way for you. At first, it feels generous, but later, it comes back. You might hear something like, "Remember when I helped you?" or "I did that for you." Suddenly, there's this invisible pressure. You start feeling like you owe them something. And once someone makes you feel indebted to them, it becomes much easier for them to influence your decisions. That's why this tactic works so well. It doesn't look like control. It just looks like kindness. The truth is, control rarely looks obvious. Most of the time, it builds slowly through small behaviors that seem harmless at first. But once you start recognizing these patterns, something powerful happens. You become aware, and awareness makes it much harder for anyone to quietly influence your decisions. And now I'm curious about something. If you've ever experienced any of these behaviors from a friend, family member, or coworker, let me know in the comments. I'm really interested to hear your experiences, and I'll be reading through them. And if you enjoy learning how psychology shapes everyday behavior, make sure you like the video and subscribe, because the more you understand how people influence you, the harder it becomes for anyone to manipulate you.